Good day, everyone. Sorry I ran a little late this morning. I don't have slides, but I think we can run through it anyway very quickly. This meeting is being recorded. I remind you the IETF note well, which governs a lot of the legal niceties of you participating here. If you're interested in that, please type IETF note well into your favorite search engine and read up to your heart's content about intellectual property considerations and the code of conduct for IETF meetings. We need a scribe for today. Do I have any volunteers? Do I have to pick someone from the list?
I get a lot of echo.
Oh, sorry.
But I will take notes. I think it will be focused and condensed.
Okay, it serves as a reminder to use headphones, as I've just belatedly done. I'm sorry, Magnus, what did you just say?
I said I will take the notes.
Thank you, Magnus.
Yeah.
All right, our agenda today is 15 minutes on LOC from Mo. That'll begin in about a minute. And then we will hand the remainder of the time to our editors for issue and PR discussion. Alan sent an email yesterday discussing the PRs that we were going to discuss. So with that, I think, so would anyone like to bash the agenda? All right, hearing nothing. Mo, go ahead.
Yeah, can you share?
I wasn't aware that you had shared slides, but okay.
Magnus uploaded them for me yesterday. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this is a quick update on the LOC issues. Next slide, please. Three main topics that we want to close for the next version, which will be 02. The first one is the most important, so I'd like to spend, maybe 10 of the 15 minutes on that to close that out. Maybe it'll be quick and give us some time back, or maybe it'll go nowhere. The last two should be minor points. But first, we want to discuss the metadata location. There's a proposal to go back to the original version of LOC, which had a payload header instead of using the object extension headers. I have a few more slides on that that we'll talk about later. And this is mostly to reflect what's happened since merging the secure objects immutable header extension and some of the newer proposals around track headers or properties. Try to align better with those. We're looking at going back to that original LOC design. The last 2 points that are relatively minor, one was changing the current timestamps to be less rigid and have a time-based extension, the way that a lot of popular APIs are structured. And then finally, whether or not to keep the support that we have for the start code formats. Got a couple of brief slides on those 2 things. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the metadata location. Okay, so this is what is currently specified in version 1. The MOQ payload maps directly to the LOC payload. So there is no extra encapsulation inside of the LOC payload. There's no payload headers. It just goes directly into the MOQ payload. Any metadata like timestamps or frame markers or things like that, those go into LOC header extensions, which are part of the overall MOQ header extension registry. So that's the current design. And the concerns that people had were that it was polluting the general MOQ object header extensions, which are intended to be, which a lot of people interpret to be relay relevant, polluting those with metadata that's very payload format specific, very media specific. So they argue that we shouldn't have things like timestamps in the registry if the relays don't know or care anything about the timestamps. So this proposal to push those things back into a LOC metadata registry and have a payload header that's basically a TLV of all of the LOC extensions. So next slide will show that format. Okay, so the suggested change in version 02 is to have no MOQ header extensions. The object header extensions would only be for relays. We would not put LOC media metadata inside of those extensions. We would put them inside of the LOC header, which is a payload header inside of the MOQ payload. So this would be a new registry, and so there would be no conflicts with the MOQ general object headers. So we wouldn't have to share the code point space. We could have our own code points for our own metadata fields. And I thought that we had general consensus on this direction. So I already started doing the change, and then a few people piped up and thought that there was not agreement to do this. And so that confused me. I thought that we did have agreement to do this. I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that this is the direction that we want to go to for LOC version 2. So if anybody feels this is not the right direction, please speak up now.
I have a clarifying question, which is what are the headers that are currently defined and what are the ones that are not defined but you envision to be defined?
Yes, so the primary one that I think almost all applications will use is the timestamp. There's also other ones in there that are for video frame marking to give you metadata about which layers map to which streams. And there's the audio energy level marking for audio streams. I think that as we finalize other things like the track extensions and the filters for subscribe namespace that allow you to do top-end subscriptions, I think we may end up removing the video frame markers and the audio energy level extensions. But the timestamp, I don't ever see that going away. So that's the one concrete thing that I think almost all applications will need.
Okay, so my comment is I think the timestamp is the only thing here that is important, and it's a bit unfortunate that the time base is after that, because I'm not sure what's our time plan for time base is. But one of my observation is like we need to figure out whether we want to. There are scenarios in which we would expect relays to care about timestamps or not. MOQ, as it's currently defined, does not care about timestamps. However, it is entirely plausible that we might want to expose timestamps if we end up doing sender-side ABR, and that's useful. So I think that is like we're trying to solve this in generic, but like we only really have one log header extension, and that's timestamp.
Well, let me clarify. I mean, I think it'll grow. I think there'll be many more. One that I forgot is we also have the config decoder config record, the extra data for video decoder initialization. That's also an extension in LOC today. And I think maybe that may make sense to become a track extension, unless you want switching of resolutions within a track, in which case you wouldn't put it on the track. You'd have to put it back on a group basis or something like that. But I think there will be many other. There's a lot of. I mean, if you look today at RTP, there's a ton of metadata that goes in RTP header extensions, and even the RTP header fixed header itself. There's identifiers and timestamps and bits and stuff that people care about and use. I don't expect that's going to go away with MOQ. I think we'll have things grow over time. A lot of metadata being registered.
Yeah. Okay. Let me explain my position. Is that I personally now looking at this, like if this were abstract extension, I think this one's the one with lock header extension inside of a MOQ payload would make more sense. However, since our only extension is timestamp, and I highly expect that we will define things that would make relays rely on timestamps at some point, I am not sure how much sense that makes, if you understand what I'm saying.
So let me understand your point, Victor. Are you saying that we should not have a payload header inside of the LOC payload, or we should have a payload header there, but we don't really know what we're going to register there yet?
Yeah, the second is like we might want that at some point, but I don't think anything that we have currently belongs there. As like frame markings might belong there, but like we should get rid of that. And the audio level obviously does not belong that, because we intend to get relays to filter on that. So I do think that like lock extension headers might be useful at some point, but I don't think we have anything to put there yet.
Yeah, so my view on timestamps is that I think that the media level timestamps will probably stay in LOC. I don't expect them to be the relay visible media level timestamps. We may have some other kind of timestamp that's relay visible, but I don't expect that the media level timestamps would move out of the LOC payload headers. I think people are going to still want those in there.
Guys, the queue is very, very deep, and we're used more than half of the time already. So I suggest you take this to the list, or I don't know if there's a GitHub issue for this. IETF.
Yeah, there is a GitHub issue for this. So basically, from the earlier discussion and the GitHub issue discussion, I think, to my understanding, the consensus would be that basically for whatever data extensions that would not need to be seen by relays, then we can put it into, for example, what do you call LOC head extensions here and as part of the MOQ payload. Otherwise, they shouldn't. So basically, I think it all depends on what parameters we're going to include. Currently, there are only two, right? Timestamp and the audio level. And then the discussion of audio level is used as an example that could be used by relay. And so that then probably should not be just considered as MOQ payload. In any case, I think we probably do not need to make a architect decision here, just saying, okay, whatever parameter that need to be seen by relays, they cannot be payload, right? They can go anywhere. So currently, because there is not many data, so if we decide we have an architecture here, we need to be clear, okay, that guy, if he's considered as MOQ payload, then you cannot include parameters that are useful for relay.
Okay, I think I just want to plus one what IETF said. Like, take it on a case-by-case basis. If it's useful for relays, it needs to go in the header extensions for MOQ. If it's never going to be useful for relays, there should be a place to put it that's only in lock, that's like private to it.
My question is there cases where you would like to, in some cases, have it in lock header extension, sometimes in the MOQ key header extension?
Yes, I think there will be cases like that.
Yeah. So, but I agree with that previous that I think there's a clear potential for need for this as well as the MOQ header extension. So
Yeah, and to clarify Magnus's point, I think we may end up having some that are double registered or triple registered, depending on whether track headers or track properties become a separate registry or they just share the current object header registry. So if there's multiple registries and you want the same data in multiple different places, you just register it in all those different places.
So I have two comments. One is that we, regardless of what extensions we define to be log payload specific or not, the draft should talk about an extension mechanism to define log header extensions, and we need to do that in this draft. We might not have anything to start with, but that's okay. And second thing is that even if they're the audio level and the frameworking, which might become MOQ header extension, the log draft can still define them, saying that when you're using a media payload, for example, in log, the audio level can be used for something versus something else. So I don't think so. This, in general, the direction of what you're proposing more is fine. At the same time, the framework should support how do we define payload header extensions, and it can also define header extensions that are corresponding to MOQ as well. I don't think so we'd have to remove it from the log draft.
Okay, that's the end of the queue, right?
So do we want to conclude on this? My what I hear here is that yes, people say there's a need for having it in the log header extension as part of the MOQ payload, but there might be double extensions, etc. And this needs to be clarified. Do you have any that is against ensuring that just at least the first step here of ensuring that the log header extension is part of the MOQ payload? I guess no. So I will note that as the conclusion here.
Thank you. All right, next slide, please.
EAQ, you had.
Yeah, just one more comment. So I think we can specify this log header extension, but we shouldn't include any parameter that would be useful for relays to scene, right? For relays to scene, then you cannot be put in here because this is part of the MOQ payload. So only for those data that are not useful for relays. I think that's sort of the agreement.
I think that might be need more discussion around that aspect, because I think there's the security aspect of this. You might have something which could be in either, and depending on your security stance on that data, you put it either for the relay or for the in the MOQ payload inside the security envelope. So I think there's comments in both ways on that aspect. But maybe take that to the issue, that aspect.
Yeah, and just for those that aren't aware, the LOC repo is under the work group GitHub, and there's issues open for all these items we're talking about today. Okay, I think we'll have the direction for this one. I'll go forward with the change. Next slide, please. Can someone advance those slides? Thank you. Okay, now I can see it. The next issue is about timestamps. So the current definition of timestamps we think is too rigid. It was just kind of a straw man. It's microseconds anchored at the Unix epoch. And we think that's too rigid. Most applications are not going to want that rigidity. And so either they all register their own timestamps, and we have 100 different timestamp extensions, or we let it be more flexible and say the timestamp is arbitrary. There's only a single timestamp extension, but the units of it and the 0 point are arbitrary, and they're defined by another extension called the time base. So the time base would provide the units and provide the 0 anchor point, if any. And that's the way a lot of OS APIs and media APIs in general around timestamps work today. So we think that aligns well with what people expect. And you could, to avoid the chattiness, you could even put this as, one-time extension, either, at the group level or even at the track level if we end up having track properties or track extensions. Anyone feel that this is not a good direction? Otherwise, we're going to go with it.
I assume you can put it in the catalog, right? The time base.
You could, yes.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Otherwise, yes, this is we should definitely do this.
Yeah. So I mean, today you couldn't put it in the catalog because the timestamp is still constrained to be something very specific. When we relax the timestamp, it's not any more specific. It's just arbitrary units and zeros. So then you could put something in the catalog that gives you the time base that you want, and never put the time base extension if you don't need to put it.
Just one quick comment. Warp defines a time track as well, where some of this can be the information can be provided. I'm not saying that that's the one way is right or wrong. Maybe this is an optional extensions are optional, so defining a track level extension would not hurt as much as if an application implementation can find out in more than one way, we might need to have a way to say which is the right one to pick. So that's the only confusion I have if there are multiple ways to get the same information from.
And I think Warp may end up with several different timestamps. The Warp has different concepts of timelines separate from the media timestamp, so that there may be some confusion about all those different types of timestamps. But each one of them will have its own time base, and they could be inside of catalogs or in Warp headers or in this time base extension. Okay, so I think we have, I heard no objections to that, so we'll go forward with that one as well. Next slide, please. Start code format. We're probably going to lose most people on this one because it's kind of deep in the weeds of the media format. But there are two primary formats that encoders output and the decoders expect. One has length prefixes. So before each part of a frame, you'll have the length of the frame being prefixed before it. That's the more common approach. And then there's another format where instead of the length, you have zeros. You have 3 or 4 zeros in front, indicating there's a new NAL unit or subframe, and that's called start codes. So the current LOC draft supports both. It allows both length prefixes and start codes because Web Codex supports both. You can configure Web Codex to output either or a decoder to input either. And so LOC supports that because Web Codex supports that. There was one comment that from IETF that it'd be simpler if we just didn't support that. And I think it's easier to retain it than it is to eliminate it. It doesn't really cause any overhead in the current spec to support it, and it gives better compatibility with Web Codex. And my main concern with removing it is there's confusion about NXB format because the setting called NXB in Web Codex governs two things. It governs the start codes and it governs where the parameter sets go. In the NXB format, the parameter sets are in the stream, in the payloads. So you have the SPS and PPS in 264, and then more parameters in 265. Whereas in the non-NXB format, they're in a config record, and that's a header extension or a LOC header extension inside of the LOC spec. So I don't want to remove something that Web Codex supports if we don't have to. So I prefer to keep it in there. IETF?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, yeah, I don't have strong opinion here, but I think it's way better to not support that because NXP, the Stack-based format, was really designed in the codex for use in MPEG-2 transport system environment. And nowadays, those systems are basically gone. And even in PEG-15 file format for FEC, HEVC, and so on, the Stack code, even they're ignored. So so it will be cleaner, even though and also the specification support removal of the support is easy. It's not difficult to do. And the key here is not about specification implementation. It's about your actual implementations, whether you need to do those support, do those conformance tests, and so on. So I think it's better to not support it. And the other, there is one more comment from an issue that supports my opinion. But on the other hand, if you have a strong opinion, want to keep it, then that's fine with me. And also then another thing is that the primary sets, whether it's in band or out of band, it's completely independent of whether you use Stack code or not. That is just part of a H.265 design and the file format design. Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify that last point, it should be independent, but unfortunately in Web Codex, it's not independent. The placement of the parameter sets is also tied with the NXB parameter. So the NXB parameter in Web Codex gives you the in-band parameter sets, which a lot of applications need. But when they do that, then you're forced into using start codes as well. So some people are using start codes because they really want in-band parameter sets.
Yeah, if it's the case, then it's a design flaw of Web Codex there. But I haven't checked whether it is or not.
Yeah, I'm in favor of retaining it. We have implemented it, and it's a bit of extra validation to make sure it works, but it's not too much of a code. At the same time, it gives us the maximum compatibility with the web codec. So I'll be in favor of retaining it until it's really something that's no one uses today, and it's good to get rid of it.
I would say retain this with understanding that individual applications such as Warp can profile this, like to require it to go one way or another.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I think we have the signal for this as well.
All right, Mo, we're way over time, so just
We're done.
I want you
Thank
to
you.
briefly. Yeah. Oh, do you not? Well, you have two more slides. Are they not real slides?
We can skip them. There are just more details about the NXP format if people didn't understand. There's an open issue with Web Codex. What I was trying to describe to UQUIC is that what NXP governs two things: the start codes and the parameter sets, and really they should be separate. And there's new HEVC and AVC formats that allow you to have linked prefixes and in-band parameter sets. But unfortunately, Web Codex has a bug that they're not supported correctly. So just review the slides offline, and people that want to understand the issue in more detail. And we're still going to try to get that bug fixed in Web Codex.
Great. Thanks, Mo. It's great to see there's a lot of interest in this. I encourage everyone to go to the GitHub and share your thoughts there. We could have more detailed discussion. Alan, are you ready? Or do you want to have Ian lead off first?
Yeah, I think we want Ian to do the first couple, and then if we still have time left, I can pick up from there.
Okay.
Yep. I will present because even though these issues have PRs, I was trying to make short slides just to make it a little bit easier to walk through. Okay, so the two I'm going to talk about, just so folks know, are 1334 and 1374. Let me present. Did that work? Yes. Great. Perfect. That is working. Okay. This is mostly just a restatement of what Alan put on the list, but we talked about extensibility in Montreal. 1374 is adding track extension headers, which are really pretty darn similar to the object extension headers we have now. They can just be applied to tracks. They're sticky and they're cached. So, if you reply to a subscribe, that's been cached for a second person, you give them back the same extension headers that you gave to the first person who originally requested the subscription. The PR makes it so you can apply to object extension, or these extension headers can be defined to work either on objects or tracks or either. And definitely open to different naming. I stuck with the extension headers one because it's clear what we're talking about, even though I kind of hate that name, but it's at least like obvious what the noun in question is. And fixing the name later is easy. And I think almost all other names we've come up with sort of have potential problems, but that's a quick summary. There's also a related PR that Alan wrote previously about end-to-end parameters. We're not going to talk about that today, but if we do go forward with 1374, we'll probably be going back to that and trying to evaluate like whether to go forward with that and if like how to massage it in shape. So I think this one's pretty close to done. I think there's a few minor comments maybe outstanding, but I assume people are okay with me not fixing the naming in this PR, please.
Yes, we can fix the name later.
Okay. Okay.
I guess I just wanted to, and looked at that PR. I noticed that none of the authors or editors have approved it yet, which we can. So, but I guess my question. So, assume authors and editors. Nobody has any. If there's no dissent here, we should just review this, stamp it, and merge it soon, because this is like blocking a number of things.
Yep. Agreed. Cool. Oh no. I can't hear you, Mo, if you wanted to say something. Okay, I'm going to go back to 1334, which is subscribe namespace. I'm putting it on a stream. So in this PR, subscribe namespace opens its own bidirectional stream and has an option field that allows the subscriber to ask for publish. Namespaces are both. So this is fixing kind of a few issues that we've discussed over time. The original motivation was actually the 1168 one, the ID exhaustion problem, where right now you can do a subscribe namespace and blow through everything, single request ID you've been allocated in no time flat. That creates its own problems. But it also fixes this issue where today you can't ask for only publish or only namespaces.
Hey, Ian, sorry to interrupt. I think the PR is 1344. If people are looking for it, they might find a wrong one. Sorry to interrupt.
Did I put the wrong one on the slides?
Yeah, it's 1344. Just for information.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Cool.
I'll edit that for you. Thank you. Yes, 1344. I can't believe I fat fingered that. And yes. All right. Yes. So it allows this functionality that I think we've talked about back and forth about, like, should you have to get both publish and namespaces at the same time? Just seemed like an obvious time to do that. It fixes 1305, which is the fact that today you can't actually have a publisher cannot actually close a subscribe namespace at all, which was mentioned, I think, during implementation and noticed during implementation. So now, instead of doing unsubscribe namespace, you just close the stream, and that allows either side to close the subscribe namespace. You no longer repeat namespace prefix, so that saves you potentially a bunch of bytes in a number of use cases. It doesn't do not just those two things, but a few things that could be done. That I put the two most obvious ones. It doesn't make any changes to request ID. So subscribe namespace still has a request ID. The things on the stream do not have request IDs, but subscribe namespace itself does. And it doesn't drop the namespace, the length from the messages on that bidirectional stream, which certainly could be done. But I haven't done that. There's a few other things that potentially we could kind of do to push this a little bit farther. But I think as it is, 1344 is a very good minimal stab at kind of fixing all of these problems that are fairly real, and it doesn't overreach and try to fix everything at once, hopefully. This one's also been out for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks now. So, okay. Alan, I think, did you want to add anything? I'm going to pass you back.
I guess since we're presenting here to get the working group signal, so it'd be great if some people, even if you're like, this looks great, go ahead and merge it, is like, that's a great comment to add right now. Or I haven't looked at it, I need to think more about it, please hold off while I review, or some kind of signal would be good here.
Great. And reviews always welcome. Gwendol.
How many messages have bidirectional streams?
Right now, this is the only thing besides the control stream.
So it kind of breaks the flow we have, where we have the bidirectional
right
streams for control messages, and all the others are unidirectional based.
Right.
Right. So,
I mean, one observation is that the namespace publication are announcing, or however you want to refer to it, those aren't really control messages in the same way that like subscribe and unsubscribe are control messages. Those are fairly like different things. So putting those on the control stream was creating like a number of problems.
why do you see it as a different beast?
They're almost kind of like data in some sense, because you're requesting like track, like metadata from the peer.
But
in
you
particular,
usually subscribe to some objects which will come later, and the objects are, there is a new namespace, right? So it's could be seen as being not very far from the publish subscribe. I understand that it's less frequent, less flow, less strings, but it's something which is.
Yeah, I mean, I know this leaves us in the spot that's like a little bit in the middle. Like I would rather just move things to streams as an individual, but like this, we tried to solve this problem a different way by writing a PR that put this metadata into like a track of some sort, like a special track. And that turned out to have like a lot more negative like side effects and weird consequences than this did for sure. So, I mean,
Mo, are you still in the queue trying to get in, or you want to come back later? Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think one thing I wanted to mention was what Ian just mentioned, was that we have a different PR, which is in my personal repo, that's like, let's do it all just with a track. So you just subscribe to, I think I called it like the discovery track, and the data and there's data coming back, which represents the same data that is coming here. But I think everyone was like, that works, but it's weird. But if anybody really thinks like, no, I think this is what I want it to look like, I can send you the link to the PR, you can read it, and you can decide for yourself if you're like, no, that's a better direction. But I think a sort of, I mean, it will be in an in-between place here with like this one message goes on a BiDi stream and none of the rest of them do. But like, it may also serve as a model like, oh, we like this better, and we maybe would move, like, I think publish namespace is like another potential one that would make more sense on a bidirectional stream, et cetera. So anyway, it's sort of a model. That's how I view it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we land this, or I will probably either way, I'll write a PR to like show everyone like what it looks like to move everything else on to bidirectional streams too.
Yeah, I see Mo in the chat asking questions about the hell is the discovery track. Yeah, it was sort of a poor man's catalog. I mean, in a lot of ways, you think about subscribe namespace is like catalog less discovery. If you say like everything's going to happen in an application level catalog track, then subscribe namespace is like a little bit, then you don't need it. But if you want to build an application that just leverages the relay's internal memory state as its catalog, and everything else can be done without other catalog specific data, then you can do that. So
Mo,
like
you asked
the things in MOQ, we now have more than one way to do something.
Yeah, you asked the same question I did, and I think the catalog is a well-defined thing you can subscribe to that has like properties that we understand. This trying to like put the functionality that we're discussing here with subscribe namespace, try discovery into its own track. Part of the challenge was it turns out that track is unique for every single relay on Earth, which like kind of made my head explode. So like that's one of the reasons why it's not really a good fit for like being a track.
Cool. I think in general, I like this direction. The very fact that today we have a request ID exhaustion problem that needs to be fixed, especially when you do subscribe namespace with forward equal to 1, and we don't want to just waste for every published the request ID. So this is in general a good direction to go. And I think since the time we introduced announce or something, the namespaces, we have this discussion about should this be done with MOQ layer or an application layer. And what Alan's proposal is like in between both. I feel in terms of simplicity, this is a good direction to go. And also, this might, if this helps, one of the earlier design for fetch was to do something like this as well, because it can have a fetch request and response be in a bidirectional stream, and this kind of creates some of the control messages which are bound to the data. And we can start seeing that pattern and expand to other things where they clearly define that lifetime of the control message and the data log that goes along with it. So in general, I'm in support of this direction. Thanks,
Faz. I'll also point out one last thing, which is this doesn't create new problems. And I do fear that if we like go off in the direction that's like much different from the status quo, we may risk like creating new problems. So, any last words? Okay, Victor, you want to go, and then I'll hand over to.
Can you guys, okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me. So you said it doesn't really introduce any new problems. Not that it's a big deal, but we have been kind of relying on the fact that there's only one bidirectional stream, and that's how we know it's the main control channel. And we latch onto that. So that does change a little bit of logic with this now. And it kind of comes up of which one comes first. I assume that there will be something in there that says that the primary bidirectional needs to come first, followed up by this or any other additionals. But now we have to kind of look at the bidirectional stream a little bit differently than we do today.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that's probably a good thing, right? Because I can always create an extension to MOQ in the future that uses bidirectional streams differently than we do today. So it's like probably good to exercise that extension point sooner. I mean, HV3 kind of, I think in some sense made maybe a mistake by like making it too difficult to reuse bidirectional streams.
That's probably open for discussion, but either way, I'm just highlighting that is a change that's going to have to be done. I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yep, definitely.
Yep.
Cool. Victor?
Yeah, there is a change. I think we should do, if we're doing the change, we should do that now, because with HTTP, we did not put any type on our BiDi streams, and we kind of regretted that in retrospect. I want to say that in general, I think this is the correct step forward, because it solves like the flow control and back pressure issue, whereas right now it's like on control stream. And so if you send thousands, if you need to learn about thousands of track names, they would all go on control stream, and you can't send any control messages until that happens. So this is an improvement.
Thanks. Mo? I'm going to hand over to Alan, if that's okay, and then.
You asked the question there, Ian. What conclusion do you take out from this?
I mean, I'd like to land both these PRs in the relatively near future, minus like reviews. I mean, I think both of them solve pressing issues, and as Alan said, the track extension header one like sort of is necessary to complete the rest of the extension type of like design that we sketched out in Montreal. So that's sort of like the big step number one, and the other steps I think will be smaller. So
okay.
I think Mo had comments
Oh.
back on the extension thing, but never got his audio working. So I don't know if we want to wait a sec to Steve, if Mo can type in the chat what the concerns were there or feedback.
But Mo, I just recently posted his support this in general.
But you typed it all. I didn't see it. Okay, so the extent, as long as Mo, as long as Mo's good, then that's great. I will make an attempt to. I did take my email and I made it into slides for people who like looking at stuff. Let me see if I can succeed in sharing my screen, which I'm really not convinced that I can. Yes. Okay.
We see it. We
You're
see
good?
it. Yes.
While he's doing this, I just want to relay Mo, who can't, his audio isn't working, that Mo supports the use of BIDE streams, or agrees to general use of BIDE streams and correlated transactions.
Okay. Here, I can turn my camera on so you can see my shiny face too. Okay. If Cullen is not here, I can briefly talk about what's in this PR, but I think he had the biggest concerns. So I don't know that we want to spend a ton of time talking about it. We may need to circle back. So we talked in Toronto about the problems with error codes and how are you supposed to handle them. And the idea was to provide more structure. So this PR adds a retry interval field into request error. And so this is like, it makes that what the receiver is supposed to do with the error more explicit. So the sender of the error can say, don't ever retry this. It's bad, it's broken, and you need to do something else before you fix it. Or the sender can say, retry this either immediately or retry this at some future time. For example, if you have a token that is not yet valid, you can get an unauthorized with a retry interval set to 1 hour, which is when your token will become valid or something. And the idea was to allow then there to be implementation defined error codes, which might not mean anything to a different receiver. But if the sender of the error wanted that receiver to retry it, it would use this retry interval to set it. So I think there's still questions around that. Looking at Cullen's comments on the PR, there's also there's also text in that PR about using jitter to prevent retry storms. And doing that on the sender side, which is like the sender can like use some randomization in this interval if it's sending these messages to prevent massive retry storms. And I think there's questions about how much text do we want to put in there. I don't know if anybody wants any quick comments here or if we should just save it for another time. Martin?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote this PR. I don't really care about the details. I just wanted to close an issue for somebody. But the thing that makes me sad about this is that, I mean, if we do move to bidirectional streams, we could get rid of the request error message because we could just use reset stream instead and have an error code. And now if we're going to go beyond just having an error code, then that kind of ruins this. I want to get rid of messages wherever I can. And so that makes me a little sad. And I would like to, I'm just wondering if there's another way to do this.
Okay, I want to push back on the idea that using quick resets to signal on bidirectional streams to signal errors is like amazing, because if you look at like HTTP, there's like sometimes you can get a full HTML error page back that's like, and I think that detail is sometimes useful. So if you went to reset stream, you'd lose reason phrase and retry interval, and I think both are useful. Some other people think that nothing good comes from reason phrases, but I do. Anyway, Tim?
Yeah, so I kind of agree. I think that the retry is useful. There probably could be another way to convey the retry as like maybe a response message or something. I don't know. But in either case, I do think the retry is useful because we do want to have people come back and try something again. Like if there's no publishers available, as an example, and you're trying to subscribe to something, we're saying, no, there's nothing there. retry again, maybe on some interval, rather than they do a fast loop and start flooding us repeatedly.
Yeah. I see Mo ask in the chat, how would any retry interval be computed? Seems speculative and dicey. I think the answer is like, I mean, this is exactly or very similarly copied to something that HTTP has. And yes, sometimes it's wrong. I mean, a common case is like, I mean, the auth case I think is more explicit, where it's like, I know your token is going to be valid in the future, but the you know, servers are server overloaded, like I want you to come back later is like a common one to prevent this. Why couldn't the client compute the interval in the same way with no signaling? The client, I think, can't necessarily infer whether the server has the sender of the error message has the most context about, is this retryable or is it fatal? And if it's retryable, when might it succeed? That the one receiving the error may not. Now the jitter, I think we could say clients have to add the jitter, but I'm also not going to need to lie down on that road.
I had a question. I don't have an extremely strong opinion on this, but I do wonder, since something similar exists in HTTP, does anyone use that? Like I don't think our code uses that. I never remember ever seeing code that actually looks at that value in our
It's called retry after, and I'm sure that our uses of it. I don't know if we use that exactly, but I think we may use something similar.
I mean, I work pretty closely with two different client libraries, and I don't remember. I mean, maybe their code is buried somewhere I've never seen, but I'm pretty familiar with all the retry logic for zero RTT failures and rejects and all go-aways and all those things. I've written most of that code in some way, shape, or form at some point, and I don't remember ever seeing that header being used. I'm just saying.
I mean, I think HTTP has another signal, which is the class of the error code divided by 100, and that tells you something, which we could also do. I see Mo made a comment it seems like it's more important to signal whether it's fatal or not fatal, and the interval is less. I think we have issues about interval. There's reasons why people want interval and people want fatal. And so this is one field that can convey both, which is it's obviously fatal if your retry interval is 0. Anyway, I want to move on, and we can because I think Colin has strong feelings here, and I think talking about it without him is going to just mean we have to spend more time on it later. Unless somebody feel free to put your comments in the PR, and we'll hold this for whenever the next interim is, I guess. Yeah, I'm going to roll on unless there's more comments. 1342 is PR by Victor. That comes out of what we talked in Toronto, which is how we talk about missing objects and object status. So one effect of this is it removes the ability to serialize the do not exist status anywhere in the protocol. You can't send it in response to a subscribe. You can't send it in response to a fetch. Because fetch already has a way to implicitly convey it, and there's sort of not a point to send something to tell somebody else it doesn't exist in a subscription. Then the PR also allows relays to remove a prior object gap or a prior group gap extension in a fetch response because they can be redundant in that context. Victor, correct? Did I miss anything summarizing what's in that PR?
I think those are the three main points.
Okay. I think this one's pretty close. So if anybody has any, yes, keep going. No, please change course. Okay. Mo says +1. Okay, that should be landing soon. Okay, 1331, allow unknown ranges in a fetch response. This sort of came up as a side question in Toronto, what happens if you have a gap in your cache and no way to fill it? You've cached 0 and 2 and you have no publishers, and somebody sends a 0, somebody wants the whole range from 0 to 2. Right now, all you can do is send them 0 and then reset that fetch stream and be or you can send unknown, or you can fail the whole fetch and be like, something in the range you asked for is unavailable right now. I have no idea what to do about it, which seemed not great. So this PR gives you a mechanism, if you're a publisher, to say like, here's 0. I have no idea what's going on with 1, but then here's 2. And the actual spelling of it in this PR is a conflict with the previous PR, but I think it's resolvable. I think the direction is more about like, do people want this functionality? And yeah, that's like the main question. Like we can figure out spelling. Victor, is your hand still up? I can't tell if it's stale.
No, it's a new hand. So relays, I don't think relays themselves would ever generate this, because like if you're a relay and you don't know if object 1 exists or not, you have to go back to upstream. And I assume we're not changing this logic.
The reason why a relay might do it in that case, Victor, is if the publisher was a client that had shown up, and then that publisher is not connected right now. So you get someone sends you a fetch.
Okay. Oh, like partial fulfillment from cache. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I can serve you, and that publisher may never come back.
So
right?
that's one of the cases. The other cases, we allow you to start group n+1 before you finish group n, and there are some cases for this.
We allow you to start group. Oh, I see. Where
if you're an original publisher and you started publishing n+1, you might want to do a joining fetch, but there's like the tail end of group n, which you've not finished yet, because like you're using something where your groups might temporarily like overlap in time at some points. And that's the second use case. I think both of those are mostly useful, but we might need to do a bit of like bike shedding on how to exactly encode this.
What do you think is important about the encoding?
I think it's one thing I would want to know is like, I want to distinguish whether it's like really saying that the original publisher is gone. I'm not versus like original publisher saying this does not exist.
I see. So instead of just a singular status that's like, this object is like, I don't know about it, you want to give more context, which is like, this object is like, I'm a cache and I don't know where to find this object.
I've not thought about this way. This is just like, you said that, and that like we probably want to distinguish. But other than that, the important thing is of course to distinguish between like unknown status versus the status does not exist, which is well defined, and we have very clear semantics for it now.
Yeah, I agree. And the current PR, the reason why it has a conflict is it assumes like if you see an unknown marker, it says everything you didn't get since the last real object is unknown. And that doesn't work. Well, now that we've removed does not exist. That's what the conflict is. At 1342 removes do not exist.
Yeah, we'll figure this out, but probably after we'll end 1342.
Yeah, I'm fine landing 1342 first and rebasing this one. I see a couple. Oh, Suhas, go ahead, and then I'll see more comments.
I just wanted to at an API level, what's an application to expect? I think if we are clear on that, where fetch hits a relay and relay does not have the information, it has to go reach out to the origin publisher wherever it is to see if it can find the answer for the range. And the answer the fetch gives is kind of, if there's a range and there's no objects in between, it's a sure shot saying that you don't expect that objects being there because they no longer exist. Versus we are introducing a new thing. It's saying that I try to ask publisher and I could not find the publisher. I think having that's useful, but we need to be careful to say if the relay tried and could not find the publisher to find the answer, probably the unknown range should also say unable to reach publisher or something. I think because the fetch is supposed to give you a real answer rather than and looking at his cache and providing an answer. How do we enforce that requirement?
I agree with you that like fetches are like a lone way to like make sure you get all the data, and this creates like an escape hatch that wasn't there before.
Right, because we are expecting this, like a future fetch might convert this unknown range to say do not exist. Is that the only transition that can happen? Versus can
No,
unknown
I
range
think it's
become
possible to retrieve if that, let's say the publisher was lost for like, it just disconnected and reconnected. It was disconnected from the relay for 1 second. And that
Got
1
it,
second
okay.
is when I came in. So I might get an unknown or like unknown publisher not available. But then the client with the, like, it may decide to retry a fetch for objects that it didn't get later. And those might succeed because that publisher came back and is able to serve them. Or the publisher came back and says, by the way, I crashed and that object now does not exist. So I think both transitions from
Are valid.
unknown would be valid. And I'm
Yeah.
trying not to break the semantic of
I
fetch.
think that should be fine. I think so. I think that's the reason why Victor's PR should land first to understand how this interacts with that PR.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I agree. We need to resolve that.
Thank you.
Mo, you had a couple comments in chat. I just want to make sure we addressed it. So one says filters can put gaps anywhere. +1 let clients deal with resolving fetch gaps. No need for relays to go overboard on filling or denying. So this isn't necessary. Like this PR is a little bit ambiguous about is there a relay discretion if it's like, I actually know the publisher's here, but I just don't feel like asking him. I'm just going to tell you that I don't know. And then if you come and ask later just for this thing, maybe I'll get it. Like that's a potential option. I don't know if we want something more explicit, which is like, no, if there's connected publisher, relay still you can't just like sub in these unknowns because you're lazy. Or I guess if we have more than one unknown status, we can say like,
I don't think it's about being lazy. I mean, I'd see it as like a performance optimization. Like you have a few objects in the middle of like some giant range that like you currently can't get for some reason. I don't know, upstream bandwidth, whatever. And it's better to just give the person like unknown for now than like stall that fetch for like some indefinite period of time on like.
Yeah, Mike has a similar question in chat, which is like about timeouts. Like, what if I tried to fill that gap, but it's just taking too long? Like, I'm willing to wait a little bit, but not forever.
Right. Yeah, things like that. So
I mean, I'm happy to have lots of different status codes to fit those. I mean, I think there's easily 255 to be had if we want that much detail.
Anyway, I'm inclined. I think this moves things forward in a useful way, and I agree it doesn't like solve all problems, but at least it gives you a way of like not hanging a fetch on like a handful of objects that like you just don't happen to have. And in a number of cases, when I think like that could be like pretty performance suboptimal in a pretty gnarly way. So.
Okay, I think that, go ahead, Magnus.
My question was just what are we concluding on this?
The conclusion here is that I think people generally agree that it's useful as long as it doesn't break fetch semantics. People want more detail than a single unknown, but exactly the shape of that maybe isn't clear. And people want to see 1342 land first and then this on top of that. Does that sound like an adequate conclusion?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. 1332. This changes from subscribe update to request update and expand what you can update. So the bulk of this PR is just renaming this message. And then it said the remainder of it is allowing it to be sent for non-subscription requests. And the driving use case here is that so you can update auth for publish namespace, and subscribe namespace. Now, it also provides an extensibility hatch if there's something else about non-subscription requests that makes sense to update later, then you can use this message to do that. And one example that we previously sort of said we don't care that much was like changing the priority of a fetch. But this would now allow you to, if you just have request update, then you could try to change, you could use it to change the priority of a fetch, for example. Yeah, I think the PR language says like essentially the sender of the request is the one that's allowed to send request update, with the exception of subscriptions. Either side can send the request update.
I just wanted to call out that initially, like, I mean, this is actually, this is a nice generalization. It also does potentially add a decent amount of functionality, which is both good and bad. I think I would like more people to actually take a look at this, because I do think this is an area where like just more eyes on, are there edge cases here that like we're not kind of thinking about would be great. But when I went through all the edge cases that I was really concerned about, most of them turned out to be like non-problems. So seems good to me.
I see Mo as a +1. Need this for subscribed namespace in the chat. I'm curious if that goes beyond the auth case, or that's because you want to change filters, probably. Okay, Tim.
So request update, I guess it could be a little bit recursive of request update of another request update, but some of our transactions, the way I kind of look at MOQ with the transactions is some of them are long-lived. Subscribes are long-lived, publish is long-lived, but some of the other ones are not long-lived. Like fetch is actually not long-lived, it's transactional. It's a little weird with the request update in the sense of how long do we linger these things around to handle this, or what is the response of doing a request update to a transaction that we've already closed out?
Okay, so I think that's a good question. I think, first of all, fetch can be, well, the only thing I can think that I would let anybody change in a fetch would be its priority right now. And fetch can be very long, right? I can go fetch a object that is gigabytes long or will take forever to download.
But it's finite on the end, right? It ends. Whereas tracks don't end really per se unless you do end of track of some kind.
Tracks end and stuff too, but so I don't see them as super different. I think track status is a great example of like you can't update it. Like you set it, you get an answer. Like there's no point in sending an update. I think everything else has some, like publish namespace exists, and you may need to refresh your auth. I mean, that was like the driving use case here. Same with subscribe namespace. And there was a comment in the chat from Mo, but like if we do go to bidirectional streams for everything, you would scope the request update down to the stream that is associated with the request. And I think that makes fine sense.
Meaning the request update goes across that bidirectional stream specifically for subscribe.
If you had a bidirectional stream per request, then the request update can only go, that way you couldn't request update or request update, for example.
And at that point, why do you even need to specify like the request ID at that point? Because you already know that.
Wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, we're probably like, that's like, I don't know, like getting from here to there may take a few iterations, but yeah, I don't think you need it.
And because request update, we're using the same request ID, right? Because that's what you're updating, or is it going to be a parameter that says this is a request? It's like a new request ID, new transaction for request update. But then I'm just like with the subscribe request ID. Is there another parameter for which one you're updating?
So, okay. So right now there's a request ID in request update, which is to make sure you don't send too many of them. And then there's a second ID, which is the ID of the thing that you're, in this case, subscribe, because that's where it is. The ID of the subscribe you're updating. So if we moved it to the bidirectional streams, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves. But if we did that, then you wouldn't need the second ID for sure. It'd be implicit because of the stream that it came on. Whether or not we still need a mechanism to rate limit request date updates would sort of, that's TBD. So I don't think I have answers to your questions.
No, that works. Yeah.
Okay. Gwendol?
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable with this new idea of having bidirectional streams for everything, because it seems that we open the door with this subscribe update in the bidirectional streams to something much bigger, because why not having fetch in the bidirectional streams and subscribe to it, and then remove request ID, and then change the whole logic and architecture we have for this protocol. So it's not about this particular 1332, which is fine. It's about the idea that we start having this into the bidirectional streams. That worries me a bit.
Are you worried mostly because it feels like we're delaying things and redesigning things we've already designed, or do you have other worries about it?
No, it's just that we have like a 15 draft, and suddenly we changed something which was in the very first draft, and that was like the main architecture of what we have, like a bidirectional streams for control and everything else in unidirectional one. And so it's a major change, and it would. I mean, backward compatibility with all the other things is not a topic, but it's something which is still a concern.
For what it's worth, I share, like, Ian presented about this in Montreal, and I mean, I think my general concern is like, yes, like tearing this apart and rebuilding it, like it solves some problems, it might create others, it will slow us down. It creates, if you're supporting multiple versions, it may create big nightmares for you. It's a little bit off the topic of this particular slide, but we probably have to have that conversation separately.
No, this is. I mean, I'm very fine with this request update. I'm not very comfortable with the side conversation with bidirectional strings.
Okay, that's good feedback. Other comments on subscribe update, request update specifically? Or are we good here? Okay, I'll move on. Oh,
is the takeaway from that one that we should assume it's moving forward? Is that correct? Or other people?
That's my takeaway. I think
Okay.
people
Right.
seem okay with the direction as is. I guess there's a little bit of ordering. Like if we land the bidirectional stream for subscribe namespace first, then what do we do with request updates for subscribe namespace? Do we put them on that bidirectional stream, or do we put them on the main control stream? I don't know.
Oh,
we can cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, why don't we cross that bridge when we come to it?
Okay. Okay. This one, allow start location to decrease and subscribe update. So we previously said you can never widen the range. Then we agreed, oh, it's fine to widen the end, but don't widen the beginning. And then we were talking and we said, well, you could widen the beginning back to largest. Like, let's say I said I did a subscribe to a future group 10, and then I now want to subscribe update back to 9 and largest is 8. That should be fine. It can't cause any problems. And then when Ian wrote the PR, he actually removed the entire restriction at all and said, like, actually, based on the way filters work, I don't see any problems with going all the way back to 0. And then we couldn't think of any either. So I guess we wanted to bring it back here and see, like, are people okay with just allowing start location to go back?
Yeah, I think the key, when I first wrote the subscribe update text, I was worried about like raciness and a number of other things. But like once we redefined subscriptions to sort of be like filters and just be like anything that's published inside this object range you get, then at that point it's like, well, why not go back to 0? I don't know. Like there's nothing technically wrong with it. Like you're just kind of removing the filter. It's like the default subscription would be like no filters and you just get everything. So
the main concern that I had before about moving back was that you might be in the middle of a subgroup. Like the publisher's already started the subgroup and it's at 5, object 5 in the subgroup. And then I move my filter. Let's say I did a subscribe and I started at 5 and it's going 5, 6, 7. And then I go back and I say, no, I want to start at 2. Well, then it's unclear where that object, like what stream does that object come in? It can't come on the stream you already have open. But I think we actually have better text now that suggests that, like, if that ever happens, like you just have to open a new stream to send that thing. Which I think makes some people, I was talking to Luke about it. He was not thrilled about this idea that like the thing that I wanted on one stream can now come on N streams. But I feel like now that we have that text, like this is at least, like, I know what to do if this happens. Tuas?
I think this is a good change in the sense that it does not break. I agree with Ian's conclusion on that one too, because in water scenario, you're sending objects in stream 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I started at 5, and now I ask for 2. At that relay, the 2 is already out of the subscription. It's old object, so it should not be sending it. On the other hand, if somehow it's a datagrams that happen, this would not apply in that case. For water reason, if this out of order happens,
the filter basically says that if it passes the filter, it will be sent, and the current text that what you said would handle the scenario. And I think this should be okay to have that change in here.
Okay. I will point out there are strange. I generally agree in the common case that, like, if you go backwards in the subgroup, it's already been delivered. But there's weird things around reconnect and delays and multi-publisher, redundant ingest, where somehow you end up with a subgroup object you've never seen before that goes backwards from what you've already delivered to your downstream. Like, I can spell out how it can happen, but it's definitely a possibility. Now we can just say, like, yeah, just pretend like that didn't happen, and don't try to send it. But it's definitely possible.
Yeah, maybe if you can spell it out like offline, that would be helpful. We don't have to spend time with this one.
Probably in an issue somewhere, but yeah, the basic scenario is like, if you do a reconnection, and so you're like, publisher is like, I published 4, and then I'm doing make before break, so I reconnect, then I publish 5, but I publish it on both streams. So there's a stream with 4, 5, and a stream with 5. But the 4, 5 got completely delayed in the network. So the relay sees 5 first, then it sees 4 on the old stream, and it's already forwarded 5. So it doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't. That's how it can happen. So do you open a new stream and just send 4, or what do you do? Like, it's sort of a weird edge case that we've created, but it does exist. But I don't know that we need to worry about it. Like, that exists without moving subscribe update backwards.
True. I agree with you. Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it seems like everybody's fine with this. So I think you probably landed. Ian wants me to write down the moving backwards in an issue.
Every time you describe it to me, I believe what you're saying is true, and yet I can't reconstruct it in my brain like from whole cloth. So yeah,
I don't think it's an issue. I'm just going to write it. I'll send an email to the list. It describes it, explains it.
Do we need text in the draft, I guess is the question.
What would the text in the draft say?
I have no idea.
That this can happen, beware. Mo says out of order can happen, is possible at any time. Not sure we need to say more. I'm going to guess the question is like, what if you do want to give like normative relay handling to a case where you saw a track from a certain point and then you see part of that track from earlier. Martin?
So we have like a thing that subscribes can't end except on group boundaries. If we have a second stream for the stuff, so as I understand it correctly, if we started a subgroup and if we started a mid subgroup because the original subscribe, then that stream can end in a fin. But then there's an earlier stream that's created for the earlier objects when we move the thing over. And I think by the rules we've had up to now, that has to end in a reset, which seems
this
weird.
Isn't not about when streams start or end, it's when they start. Like the publisher.
Well, right, but you're opening a new stream to deliver the first half of the subgroup. Right? I think that's what you said.
No, I'm opening a new stream to deliver the second half of the subgroup.
But you're already okay. There's a subgroup that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And my subscribe starts at 3, right? Initially. And so I deliver 3 and 4. And maybe the stream's still open, whatever. And then I say, no, I want to start at object ID 0 in that subgroup. And so,
let me tell you, I will write an email to the list that gives people something concrete to argue about. We can do it.
Okay, I thought I understood what you're saying, and I think there's a problem here, but I'm okay. I guess I don't understand because you're reacting very negatively to my example.
I just want to make sure. Well, let me just write it down. It'll be easier if there's like a concrete example that we can email about rather than me trying to describe it and make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
And maybe I'll pop through a couple more slides in my last 10 minutes. Again, this is Cullen's and he's not here, but I will just explain what is here. So it says like it creates a sort of recommendation for when you're going to write down a full track name in a log, how to do it. And it says only use A to Z, and 0 to 9 unencoded. Any other character in your track name or namespace gets %XX encoded. And when you want to separate a tuple of a namespace from another namespace tuple, you use a dot. And when you want to separate a namespace from a track name, you use a hyphen. Which seems like a fine encoding. My initial thought was like, well, I feel like there's a few more characters that you could allow unencoded. That would maybe make your logs a little prettier, depending on how you choose namespaces. And then there's a hidden assumption in this PR, which is that this encoding scheme will be used in places other than logs. There's one sentence near the end that says, this will be both, this serialization format is file name and URL safe, which means, like, I don't know exactly what that means, but I think somebody wants to create an encoder, a way of encoding these things that they can go use in file names. And that has a different set of requirements, right? That means if that's one of the goals, I can't use / in creative ways, for example. Or if I want to use it in URLs, I can't use whatever, ampersands or like something else. So maybe that's fine. I don't have any problems with this PR, but it's just like, I would maybe do it differently if it had different requirements. Maybe that's my only thought. Gwendol? Martin, you're still unmuted.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same for the, I mean, we had the same problem with tokens. In MOQ, we had to transform the byte string into something which is a regular string or regular uncoded string. And we have the same kind of conversation in WARP or MSF on the URL formatting. So I think in general, we have an issue of transforming the namespace in tracks into something which can be transported with the uncoded string. I don't have any opinion about it, but it's not related to logs only. And here we say, it looks like we say that the dot and the dash should not appear in the namespace, which is something that we should add in that case.
No, they can. They just get encoded when you write them down. So I can have a track name that where the tuple is tuple 0 is A.B. But when that gets written to a wire, it'll be A. Who knows the ASCII code for, or the hex code for dot? I don't know if that is a 30. I forget about. Anyway, whatever it is, it would be % blah blah instead of dot.
Yeah, so, I mean, so I think there is a need for this, and which goes beyond logs, and it would be interesting to have this integrated into the MOQ draft, indeed, to say, well, if you want to transport it in an encoded string, then you need to do like this, or like any other way to do it, but it's a general scheme, I'd say.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is you want to see the broadening of the scope here.
Yeah.
Okay. Suhas?
Yeah, I think I agree with Gwendol here, because we do have the CAT specification. We need to specify the authorization context that specifies the MOQ URI or resource URI. We call it URI, but it's not URI as such, but where the track namespace and track name has to be put together in a way for the authorization to work. And right now it basically says use /. So, but one of the action items there was it to be URL safe as well. And something like this is helpful. I think we can basically say that if you want it to be URL and file safe, use this one. If not, there can be other ways. But having that very clearly specified, these are the use cases where it can be used, might be okay to land in the core MOQ spec. If you want something to be file name safe and URL safe, and can be used and want to be used in logging, this is what we would want to use.
Does anybody want to say like MOQ shouldn't provide a baseline encoding that is file safe and URL safe for? I mean, I think we had consensus on it was fine to say something about what to do with logs, but what Wendell and Suhas just said, and what the PR is kind of hinting at, but not as explicitly, is like, no, we're going to make this recommendation for like anywhere you need to put a track name, do it this way, or you can do it this way.
I think it's like anywhere you want it to be put and you need this requirement of it to be URL or file safe, use it this way. Like you can put it wherever you want but where those requirements are there, the constraints are there, that's what this says. You use this version of it.
Does anybody want to say that that's a bad idea? Okay. And if anybody wants to bike shed at character sets, go do it on the issue or on the PR. But I think we will take the signal that it's okay to expand the scope here, since that's what people want. Okay, we're only 4 minutes, and I have a few slides. I might just run through them, and there won't be much time for discussion. So I'm just going to like say out loud, and then if you guys have comments, go put them on the issues or PRs that are related. One is enable mixing datagrams and streams in a single track, which is an object model change from something that has existed for a long time ago, but I think we talked about it maybe in Toronto and people were fine. So this PR is there. So you can have subgroups and datagrams in the same track. It's fine. You just have to preserve the sending mechanism on a per object basis. So if it came as a datagram, you send as a datagram. If it came as a subgroup, you send as a subgroup, and you can't change it around. So that PR is up. Duplicate subscription processing. This talks about what happens if the publisher and subscriber both try to establish a subscription to the same track at the same time. So publisher is publishing, subscriber is subscribing. It just says like, who wins? The PR says publisher wins. And the subscriber gets the subscription. The subscriber initiated one gets torn down. That's completely arbitrary. If somebody feels like the subscriber ought to win, it's fine. But there's just text there that explains it. This is a very small PR, which maybe has bigger implications. So we used to have this largest group subscription filter. This adds it back. It has a very clear meaning, which is like the latest group, like your filter starts at latest group and comma 0. And it allows maybe if there's some reordering that's happening, it's kind of like, the current is 10.5 and then 10.4 comes later because it got delayed. It would go out via your subscription in the latest group filter. There's more thought here, which is you could sort of combine a latest group plus that unknown thing in joining fetch to make it so you could joining fetch a little faster, potentially, in the face of reordering. So I don't want to people have feelings about joining fetch, which we will get to after we get through all the other stuff we're dealing with. And they also intersect with what the filter design team is doing, but the PR itself is very small and not hard to implement. So people can think about it or weigh in there. One more one on joining fetch for joining fetch enthusiasts is that there are reasons why you might want to joining fetch a publish. And there's reasons why you might want to rejoin after you went from forward state 0 back to forward state 1. So you had a pause track and then you're like, okay, no, I want to switch. I'm unpausing this track, but I want to catch up from the latest group. So this adds a small amount of text that allows both those use cases. So you can, again, people have feelings with joining fetch, but this is also self-consistent with what we have. I think it's my last slide. And we're just about out of time. So I'll hand it back to the chairs.
Lovely. Thanks, Alan. Magnus is, I think, already sent a note about looking at the minutes. If you said a lot, please take a look at the minutes, make sure that Magnus accurately captured what you said. Thank you, Magnus, for taking the notes as a chair. It's hard to do. And I think we'll see everyone on December 1st, same time, same place. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.